It's water. Really. Okay. My name is Leigh, and I'm a divorce attorney. When I use that introduction at cocktail parties, it gets pretty predictable reactions. So you're kind of like an ambulance chaser, or you must be really cynical about marriage. Or the worst, you haven't met with my wife, have you? Actually, I love my work. Yes, people do cry in my office regularly. Sometimes they yell and curse. Each week I take stock of the Kleenex supply, offer warm cups of tea to calm clients' nerves, and listen to sad stories of infidelity and broken promises. Over the years, I've represented dot-com millionaires, grandparents with more debt than retirement savings, contractors working second jobs to put kids through college. I've had more than one client who I feared was suicidal. Other clients have confided about their struggles with addiction and mental illness. I've represented straight clients and gay clients, immigrants from around the world. And if attorney-client privilege didn't prohibit me from disclosing the juicy details that get shared in my office, my talk might be a little more interesting. But that's not the point. The reason that I love my work is this. Divorce lawyers work in the trenches of the human experience. It's messy and real. I have the privilege each week of bearing witness to people struggling with deeply felt emotions, rage, heartbreak, overwhelming fear, while also struggling to resolve conflicts around the topics that are most near and dear to all of us, our savings accounts, our homes, our kids. It's been easy for me as a professional serving people in the trenches of life to believe that I knew what they needed. It's just another day in the office. Then one day, I found myself face down in my own muddy trench. Up until then, things had been going pretty well, actually. My new marriage felt steady. The kids were doing fine. I hadn't had a speeding ticket in like 18 months. Okay, 12. And I guess I'd started to take a few things for granted. And that's when the universe dumped that bucket of cold ice water on my head. In the 60 seconds it took for one unwanted phone call, I became the one desperately facing a crisis that I wasn't expecting, like I see in my clients all the time. It was the day after my breast biopsy, and I knew that I would be getting results by early afternoon. I was sitting on my front porch, not letting the cordless phone out of my sight. Even though it was a warm August day, I was wearing the fuzzy blue bathrobe that I've had since I was pregnant 16 years ago. And my friend Daria stopped by to check on me because she knew I was a tangle of nerves waiting for results. My feelings were alternating between self-pity that I had to endure this cancer scare and nausea at the prospect that maybe it wasn't just a scare. The phone rang and the caller ID said unknown, which I now know is usually a caller you do not want to hear from. The nurse on the line calmly told me that my biopsy showed invasive lobular carcinoma. It's hard to describe how my body felt in that moment, kind of tingly and numb and not quite embodied, if that even makes sense. I was sweating and shivering all at the same time, kind of like I am right now. And I kept thinking, cancer happens to older people, not 45-year-old, mostly vegetarians with careers and 4 kids still at home. The nurse just calmly outlined the many doctor's appointments that would follow. The next few weeks were a blur. I had one surgery, followed by a second, followed by the possibility of a third. And I kept telling myself, my cancer was stage 1, and so this was an inconvenience, but I was going to be fine. Then I had an appointment with my oncologist to review my post-surgical pathology report. And she came in with the report in her hands and said, good news. The report shows that the chances of the cancer killing you are only 12 to 18%. What the heck? I didn't even know that was a possibility. I'm sure she could see the look of shock and horror on my face, and she kept saying, no, these are good odds. This is a good report. For her, it was just another day in the office. And I was the one on the other side of that professional relationship, needing some reassurance and support. I did not handle cancer gracefully or stoically. And my sweet, patient husband, who's in the audience, can absolutely confirm that. I sobbed to friends. I yelled at my family. I hid in my room, really for hours on end. It kind of felt like an existential crisis to be faced with these good odds at 45. I remember spending hours just laying in my bed, pondering my own mortality, watching old episodes of Veep and laughing kind of maniacally while my family downstairs was like, what is going on up there? I will say that Julia Louise-Dreyfus is a pretty good distraction. Nonetheless, 2 surgeries and 7 weeks of daily radiation left me depleted and depressed. And right now you're probably wondering when the upbeat part of my talk starts, and I'm going to leave that to Charlie King, who's actually in a couple minutes from now. But I will get to my thesis. I'm no expert, but in the last years, I've witnessed my clients humbly finding their own paths through the trenches of life. And a year and a half ago, I faced some of my own demons in a trench of my own. And so I wanted to share with you 3 things that helped me and that I'm trying to remember more now when I'm at the office. First, be present and connect. The simple act of being present with someone who's facing a major life crisis can go a long way. You don't even have to talk or come up with the perfect thing to say. Sometimes just passing the Kleenex box can be enough. I spent many days during my cancer ordeal in a yoga studio, surrounded by people gracefully moving from down dog to warrior 2, while I laid in child's pose on my face down on my mat, sobbing in a puddle of my own snot and tears. One day, the woman on the mat next to me reached over and just put her hand on my back, just to signal her presence there in the middle of my yoga meltdown. That touch felt like a warm ray of sunshine, grounding me and assuring me that I was seen in that moment and I wasn't alone. Another day I was home by myself, kids were at school, husband at work, and I just felt this rising sense of panic and fear starting to suffocate me. So I did what any 21st century woman would do. I sent an SOS by group text message. Within 15 minutes, 3 girlfriends were at my house, rubbing my feet, talking me down, telling me what I needed to hear. They weren't there all day making casseroles. They were just there in the moment that I needed them. And their presence, just for that short time, dragged me out of that dark, lonely place that I'd been in. Second, people in crisis often can appear downright crazy. Add some levity when you can, and then just roll with it. I definitely was probably diagnosable with far more than cancer during my cancer ordeal. I cursed, I threw things, I yelled at people, I blamed everyone else. My family mostly, I think, just tried to stay out of my way, which was probably pretty smart. I would come home from a 3 to 4 hour commute to Seattle for those 60 seconds under the proton beam. And I'd come in the front door, slam the door hard, stomp up to my room and climb into bed, not acknowledging anyone else who was in the house. Sometimes people would bravely come up to check on me, and my reaction varied from yelling at them to leave me alone to crying quietly and asking them to just send the dog up. Or sometimes I just pretended to be asleep 5 seconds after I walked in the door. One day, in the midst of my very bad behavior, my stepkids suggested that maybe it would be a good idea to install a lock on my bedroom door on the outside. Of course, this sent me into instant hysterics, broke the tension, and really reflected back how crazy I really was acting. A locked, padded room probably was exactly what I needed in that moment. While I was doing radiation, it was through Thanksgiving and Christmas, and going to Virginia Mason for daily radiation through that holiday season was a drag, to say the least. So I recruited as many friends and family members as I could to be my radiation dates. Doesn't that sound like fun? One day, my usually reserved stepdaughter Lily agreed to come along and had the idea that we wear stick-on mustaches into the hospital to lighten the mood. We got some funny looks and a great picture of the two of us in front of the giant $4 million radiation machine, me in my hospital gown, and both of us in our sticky mustaches. Now, taking my stepdaughter to my breast cancer radiation appointment could have been an absolutely intense and terrifying experience for both of us, for maybe different reasons. And somehow Lily knew exactly what I needed. So that trip gave us an opportunity to connect and laugh, which helped a ton. The third thing that was so helpful to me when I was going through my ordeal, even a small gesture of kindness to someone facing a life crisis can be like a life raft. The week after my diagnosis, I was sulking around the house, making a mental list of all of the things that my husband should be doing to better support me. I assumed that he was at the office working on a big, important project and not thinking at all of me and my suffering. He actually was at the bookstore buying cookbooks with cancer-fighting smoothie recipes. And he came home with a big bag of organic fruits and veggies to blend for me. I was totally humbled by his gesture, and it kind of instantly turned my anger at the world into vulnerability and a chance to just collapse into him and tell him how scared I really felt. My whole family really stepped up to lighten my load and brighten some of those dark days. Our nanny, Susie, who's really way more like family than a nanny, regularly made my bed and left little flower arrangements on my nightstand. My stepkids left encouraging notes around the house. My son Carson made Mom's upbeat feel-good playlist on Spotify and regularly tucked me into bed at night, sometimes with his favorite pillow. Those little gestures of thoughtfulness went a long way toward helping me get through those dark days. And there were even some clients who were offering to take care of me. One nurse client offered home visits to come and check on me. Another client offered to walk my dog or drive my kids home from school just because he wanted to help. And sometimes those little gestures, even if I didn't need that help, just the gesture felt like salvation. So throughout my cancer journey, I collected these little touchstones of kindness, and they truly buoyed me through what was an otherwise crummy experience. On my very last day of radiation treatment, my parents, who were in town to help, offered to drive me to Canada to see my son and stepdaughter play in a hockey tournament. I could get there just for the very last game if we went straight from the hospital. I slept the whole way up to the ice rink like a little girl on a road trip in the back of her parents' car. And when we got to the ice rink, I dragged myself out of the car and bundled up for the game. And as I was standing around the edge of the rink, I saw our team skate onto the ice, and all of our players had their hockey sticks wrapped in pink stick tape. And some of them had pink ribbons and my initials on the backs of their helmets. My son and stepdaughter had enlisted their entire team, including lots of kids who didn't even know me, to participate in this surprise to honor me on my last day of cancer treatment. I looked over at my parents, and my dad's eyes were welling up with tears. Just, I think, seeing his grandkids offer up this extremely public, touching gesture of love to his daughter. As my memory of the cancer fades, those bright spots never will. In fact, those are some of my best memories from my whole life. So when you notice someone facing a life crisis, maybe you want to offer one of those 3 gifts. Be present and take a moment to really connect and see them. Offer up some well-timed humor, even in the face of pretty crazy behavior, maybe especially in the face of crazy behavior. And any little gesture that you can provide will probably mean more than you know. I'm 13 months out now from my cancer treatment. I'm not acting like a crazy lady most days. My radiation burn has faded to a faint radiation tan. And what I don't want to fade is those memories of so many sweet, funny moments of connection that came with cancer. I'm not in my own trench anymore, but I know there will be another. And in the meantime, I have the honor of watching clients work their way through their own, so that maybe I'll face my next one with a little more grace.